And welcome back, and we're moving into our second segment, right here on 5, Open Your Eyes. This one, definitely, you want to pay keen attention to lessons from Berlin, actually cannabis for psychotherapy. Now, in to tell us more about it is actually Bea J. Armstrong, who is a therapist, and we would like to wish her a very pleasant morning. Loving the look. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How are you?
So this is interesting, and I do have to say we did have police officers who just left.
Yes.
So a conversation about this is fine.
Sure. Yes, exactly. Conversation is important, I think.
Yeah.
I think especially at the stage that we're in our country in terms of the laws, conversation is actually key.
Yeah. So BJ, the context for this really is that you were living in Berlin, and this is where we've seen more of the progressive laws where it comes to marijuana.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest of the world seems to really be shifting their thought process on it and almost learning as they go along. So you come back to Belize, where the progress that we've made is legalizing 10 grams or under and use in your own personal homes.
Yeah.
Which for marijuana advocates or cannabis advocates, it's a step, but not a large enough step. What are your thoughts?
You're right. Our laws are kind of just getting to the point of conversation, and I definitely believe that every step is a good step towards progressive laws, towards more globally accepted laws, and as you already stated, major players in the global cannabis industry are the nations that we would expect. Canada fully legalized just this past year, and we are close international allies with Canada, so I'm hoping that our global interactions will push us further. Jamaica has always had a foot ahead of us in terms of regionally. So I'm very optimistic, actually, that we have already taken the decriminalization step. But I think there's obviously more that can be done, and I know that part of it is going to be having the conversations about it, because there's still the societal concern, that's valid, of course, but the only way to get past that and to get into the game that the rest of the world is playing is to move forward. Yeah, exactly. Make moves now. Yeah.
So it's interesting because, you mentioned Jamaica, and one of the things that happened last year that I was just blown away by, they actually had a conference of people from the different cannabis industries and people who are interested in starting businesses in cannabis coming together in Jamaica. I can't remember the exact name. It stuck with me for a while. But they're really just moving forward with a business approach. CDB, is that what it's called?
The chemical, CBD?
CBD is also becoming more and more popular.
Oh, yeah. Which is actually why I am such a stickler for using the word cannabis as opposed to marijuana.
Why?
Because cannabis constitutes the botanical plant, the plant itself, whereas marijuana is actually a pretty racist term that was propagandized to be used under American prohibition of cannabis. Cannabis used to be acceptable as a medicine, as a everyday use plant. It's a plant, and so referring to it as the plant kind of eliminates some of the stigmas. And
that's interesting.
Well, very much so. You cleared our mind with that.
Right, exactly. And cannabis also.
And in fact, the scientific name is cannabis, and it's used to differentiate the different types of cannabis. The sativa, the indica.
And there's the hemp.
As
well. That comes under that, which has always been legal in our country as well. People don't also know that, and so again, even the terminologies that we use are part of progressing us towards more cannabis friendly, and the business aspect of it as well. Nobody wants to do business in marijuana. Everybody wants to do cannabis business, right?
Yeah.
So
now, while there has been a great push in Belize for the full legalization of cannabis, there's some pushback. People talk about what the effects might be, whether we're harming the younger generation, and from the political standpoint, what it means in terms of foreign exchange and the economic aspect.
Right.
You had the experience of being in Berlin, and you wanted to share that as well with people as you came back home. Tell me what that was.
So the cultural climate is obviously very different in a country that is bigger in population. The experiences, Berlin specifically, is a very artistic, creative, and bohemian lifestyle that's associated with this community as well. And so the differences between a place like that where people are very open to interacting with substances that can open your mind, open and aggressively pursuing avenues to use it medicinally, to use it in terms of the experiences I had with psychotherapy specifically. Psychedelic psychotherapy is a whole new world of
Wait, when you say psychedelic, I'm thinking like hallucinogens,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking like, you know, the stuff that is made fun of in movies all the time, that
So
makes
yes.
you act a bit wacky.
There's a caricature of these substances, but the fact is they are rooted, things like LSD, psilocybin. These are chemicals that are rooted in their discovery for the purpose of therapy.
Okay.
The purpose of them is to gain access to parts of your mind and your consciousness that are not your everyday state of being.
So what you're saying is a part of therapy in Berlin includes the use.
Other parts of the world as
and
well.
other parts, but
I
where
haven't-
you were,
yes,
yeah.
right.
Included the use of things like cannabis and other drugs.
Yeah, drugs is a term, yes.
I
that you
know,
can-
but because I couldn't list them all out, and I don't want to say
Fair,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
a
yeah.
longer interview, I guess.
Yeah.
But yes, these are chemicals that were discovered for the purpose
Yeah.
of therapy and eventually became prohibited due to political reasons that have nothing to do with their actual use. And so, again, in a society that is more focused on the benefits of the use of these substances, they can be used in very profound ways.
But how do you? Some of these substances are very addictive.
This is another part of the conversation that I think is important to have because there's such misleading information. I think for a long time we've just had a misinterpretation, especially of cannabis. There are actually no studies that prove an addictive.
And I think this is one of the reasons for the reluctance of even trying to open the gateway, because one of the things that we've been taught growing up is that this is a bad
It's a
thing.
gateway drug.
Yeah.
But
It'll
at
ruin
the
your
same
life.
time,
That was exactly the terminology.
we actually forget that back in the days, well, grandma used to actually rub us rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
In
Right.
there was actually marijuana, and that it is a medicinal
I know.
purpose about
Right.
it. At the same time, to try and open people's mind, especially for the young population. At what point, you moving over to Berlin, did you actually get yourself into it in terms of the whole medicinal aspect and then accepting it?
I'll tell you, my experiences with cannabis did not start in Berlin.
Okay.
Because we're from Belize.
Yes, man.
So it would be very hard for me to avoid some contact or some interaction with
Excellent
this plant
point.
here.
Excellent point.
Also for the reason that you just mentioned, which is that we come from actually a history of natural medicine. The herbalist perspective is one that I advocate for strongly for Belizeans as a human rights thing. I've dabbled in Rastafarianism, which also has this plant at its center. And so I think you talked about opening our minds and some of the apprehensions. I think we have more access to knowledge than we are giving ourselves credit for in Belize. It's just that the pervasive pressures over the past years have been prohibitive around this substance. So back to my experiences in Berlin, however, in terms of psychotherapy, there is this very hands-on, do-it-yourself type of mental health community that I was able to find myself interacting with, where people are getting their psychotherapy and getting their benefits by any means necessary. There are legal uses for cannabis medicinally for anxiety in their like traditional structures of psychotherapy as well, but it's very bureaucratic. It might be hard to get a therapist or get an appointment with a therapist that's licensed to prescribe it medicinally. I should also disclaim I am not a licensed medical psychiatrist. I cannot prescribe anything, even though I've discovered that in Belize as well, this is also something that has always been legal. As a medical practitioner, you can get a license to prescribe cannabis here. It's just that we haven't embraced it as a means towards the goal of mental health, which it totally can be.
So BJ, just because we know you a bit, right?
Yes.
So you come from a traditional family.
Sure do.
And you come back with this enlightened perspective based on the exposure that you saw. And, you know, I think anybody who's traveled to an area where you see a bit more openness to progression, you come back home and you start to have conversations with people and they're like, you're crazy.
Yes.
You want to be, and I'll use the words because that's what they say. You want to be on pothead, and you try to find an excuse.
I've heard it all.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's what people are saying.
How do you confront this? How do you confront it within your own lifestyle?
Yeah.
But also when, I mean, you're putting yourself out here as a faith now saying that you believe in the use of cannabis for psychotherapy to help with coping with some of the mental illnesses that we have in common in our society.
Yeah.
How do you confront the, you
stigma?
just want to be, you know, girl on the street with the...
I think over time I've gotten just a lot more comfortable in being who I want to be in terms of my profession, especially. I've had this like 10-year period between my bachelor's in psychology and pursuing my master's in neuroscience and philosophy now. I'm a graduate student now, and I just, in between that time, I feel I've had the opportunity, and I'm grateful that I've had these opportunities to explore different environments and see different perspectives on these things. And so you just become more confident with time, I guess. And I'm okay with the fact that there's still this stigma around it because it gives me something to work towards in my profession as a therapist. It gives, and you'd be surprised, there's a large and growing community of people who are more interested in the result than the stigma that could be attached to it.
But you see, the stigma, this is one of the things I find to be strange in our society, because the stereotypical image that we use is the one we keep on replaying, which is a guy on the street, just like, you know, cracking up the dried marijuana and putting it and smoking it. But the reality is that people of all walks of life in Belize, and prominent persons as well, are actually users, and have been for a long time.
Have been for a long time, have been knowing the benefits for a long time in terms of, but I still think that it's just the current moment in time that we're in globally concerning cannabis that is giving the opportunities now, the ways to use it. You don't have to smoke cannabis to get the benefit from it. There's the CBD that you mentioned earlier, which is non-psychoactive, not the THC use that we know that there's more and more research coming out now that there is a more relaxed and less prohibitive attitude towards it across the world. Now people can come out of the closet, so to speak, and say out loud that there are these benefits to it.
Can you explain some of them? Because CBD, for example, I'm saying it, but I don't know how much people are acquainted with it. It's just a booming industry. Everybody wants CBD and everything.
Because it's as a drug. So if you treat the cannabis on the same level as other drugs that are used for health benefits, mental health benefits. So let's say moringa,
right? Let's give a title, right? So just like moringa has all different facets and all these potential health benefits. Let's say cannabis and moringa.
They're actually very similar because cannabis can be used as a supplement for everything from anti-inflammatory, antioxidant purposes. I think the careful distinction that needs to be made is between the CBD and THC, which is the psychoactive property, which also has its benefits in terms of relaxation, and anybody who uses it in the traditional manner of smoking will tell you the relax. you can see the connection there to mental health benefits.
Which is why it's used in pain management
Right,
as well.
pain management, for chemotherapy patients who have nausea issues. There's the gamut of
It helps to open
benefits.
appetites, yeah.
Yes, increase your appetite. And again, these are things that we anecdotally know about it, but now that the legalization conversation is happening, my main interest and hope is that it will open research.
Yeah.
You can't research the plant if it's illegal, right? And so the biggest proponent for legalization should be those of us who want to research more and have more scientific evidence for the basis of these.
And that's where Jamaica is
anecdotal
moving,
claims.
with research in medicinal use.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you right now, some folks are actually watching and saying, I'm not sure. And the reason for this is because they will tell you that, especially for folks who does it or uses it in the traditional manner of smoking it, it's actually their life depends on it, or this is the way it seems.
Right.
Some people go with it every hour on the hour, and then why use it as a medicinal purpose, or use it because you want to keep calm, but you have to do it every hour or 3-4 times a day. What do you say about this?
If it were an SSRI, which is a traditional prescription from a psychiatrist that you get, and they tell you have to take this pill twice a day, it might affect your mood. You might find yourself feeling too incapable of performing tasks. Don't drive while you're. Nobody questions that.
Yeah.
And these are drugs that are actually potentially lethal. Nobody's died from cannabis yet. I don't know how much you would have to do, but this is again the perception problem that the industry of psychotherapy specifically has to combat. If you are looking at cannabis for those reasons, I hear that concern. It's a valid concern, but it's about the framing of the substance, the fact that it could be that potentially you're using the substance to what we call manage symptoms, right? And there's no psychotherapist that would tell you that's a good way to go.
Can be misused.
Exactly.
From NyQuil.
Any drug,
misused.
trust me, any drug. And so again, this perception that there's something wrong with you, you're an addict, you're some failure in society if you use this specific drug in a certain way, is something that I think should change.
You made it clear that there are different methodologies that people can use to get the health benefits of cannabis, and the oils are one. The concept of smoking the herb itself, I think people are concerned about the health aspects there.
I agree completely with that. I don't think any psychotherapist with integrity would prescribe you something you have to smoke. But the use of it as an extract, this is something that, again, has its roots in natural medicine. People have been extracting cannabis into coconut oil for our people, our culturally, Belizeans, Caribbean people. This is something that Mayans, there's evidence that it's been a method of preparation that I actually think is the next step in terms of our current use of it. Smoking is universally considered bad for other health reasons, and so no medical or professional with integrity would be looking to prescribe that methodology of it.
And people also eat it as well.
So extracting it into coconut oil is one method to use it in the edible form, and that is a whole different experience. Anybody would tell you, right? Anybody would tell you that edible consumption of cannabis creates a different mental experience, a different physiological experience than
Why is that?
smoking, because of the way it enters the bloodstream. If you have to digest the material, it changes there's a lot of organic chemistry involved, from the THCA to THC in your digestive system is different from consuming.
So smoking, it goes directly into your bloodstream.
It hits you quicker. You can't really manage the onset of it, but there's reasons and settings probably that you could use that
While
therapeutically.
ingesting, and it has to go through your digestive system,
which takes hours.
There's
to
absorption that has to take
right.
place.
Your liver breaks it down
Yeah.
Wow.
in the end. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. So it's a different process. It's a longer experience. And there's actually, again, when I use the term psychedelic therapy, this is the type of setting that edible cannabis has been being used in more often now, because it creates a more intense experience. You confront your emotions in a different way for a longer period. There's retreats that are now booming in places all over the world, Costa Rica, Colorado, Jamaica, where therapists are on site and available for exactly these experiences. And they almost mimic more like shamanic experiences. Like,
Is this like, and I'm not making fun, I'm just asking to clarify.
ask away.
Sure.
Is this like when you see people get drunk and they start crying, like they tap into emotions? Is that what, if I am to draw, I'm trying to draw an experience that people can relate to. We see how
yes.
some people get intoxicated. Alcohol is a drug, it messes with your
Yes,
brain.
right.
And they get angry, or they get sad, or they're crying, you know. Is it,
Yeah, I get the alcohol comparison because of the intensity of emotion that you're describing. However, alcohol, you can't control that one the same way.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Alcohol is
no, but when you talk
different-
about the cannabis opening up a mental experience, I'm
Right.
just trying to give people like a reference point to use.
Yes, for those people who have no idea what the cannabis experience could be like or what it must be like, the alcohol analogy gives you some insight into the fact that it's an altered mind state.
Yeah.
You're not in your
Yeah, but alcohol and
regular
cannabis
mind
affects
state,
the brain
yeah.
completely
differently,
I
right?
know.
Exactly.
We do
so
have to make that
Alright.
that's
distinction.
the main, I guess, comparison that you can make. And so, but the experience is completely different because the drugs are completely different.
So, what do you say? I can imagine people watching this and they cannot
Yes.
I get
wrap
all
their
these questions,
minds
yes.
around this concept. I think pain, they can understand pain management because
Yeah.
that's become more mainstream.
Right.
Opening the appetite because everybody's heard about munches, even if they've never had any
And
experience
again,
with cannabis.
culturally, you get the representation in film and music. You can guess what's going on. I
So
guess.
when you talk now about using cannabis for a form of therapy or as a part of assisting in therapy, that's a whole new mental hurdle that it's breaking down what we've always thought and we're told to believe and moving into a new realm.
Exactly. And the beauty of the plant is that there's ways to use it in so many different levels, so many different ways that even those who are just curious about it, there's microdosing of cannabis oils to manage anxiety day to day. That is a practice that I have been involved with in Berlin and pioneered and wanting to research more about.
So it means you take a little bit every day?
Right.
Okay.
Negligible dose, a few drops of a cannabis tincture of a certain potency has the effect of a Xanax without the addictive quality.
Oh, wow.
Without,
So it's replacing what would have been some of the
it's a
medication
natural
that's
alternative
prescribed.
to traditional pharmacology. It can be used in that way. It can be used in the edible context, which creates this intense, more drawn out process that I also know people who do those types of retreats. That's a growing field as well, but it's definitely a more intense, more I don't want to say hardcore, but this is not for the person who just wants to manage an everyday anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for a person who is interested in deep introspection, deep personal change, deep emotional change.
Wow.
Now,
It ranges from everyday use to
So many ways
more,
to.
yeah.
so nobody
exactly.
listens to or tends to believe that anything is all good and not bad.
Right.
So what would you
'Cause
say
it's-
are the cons or the challenges in using cannabis as a medicinal treatment for some of the common mental illnesses that we know of?
Right. That's 100% true. We already stated that cannabis is a drug.
Yeah.
It messes with your brain chemistry, and so there's been reports, although again the research and science is not ever conclusive because of the state of illegality of this drug, but there are instances of what's called cannabis-induced psychosis, which can also happen with other drugs that are traditionally used for mental health. Any strong prescription of a certain drug, if you have latent or potential for schizophrenia, you're not advised to. But again, these are things that you assess before venturing
off
into,
into that,
and
yes.
right, and just as you would with any other prescription drug, a trained therapist is somebody that you want to talk to first before you go venturing
it's
into.
not self-medicating yourself
Exactly.
for your anxiety
This
or your
is
depression. Yeah.
one of the other risks of it, where because it's been illegal for so long, we don't have the infrastructure, I guess, to talk about it so easily. I know that people who are seeking therapy often find themselves like in the position of, should I even say to my therapist that I want to try cannabis or that I am a cannabis user, because you could get in trouble.
Yeah.
There's all these barriers to it that I'm hoping that more and more the barriers subside as the conversation increases.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, when it comes to the growing cannabis, you would hear it's just natural, it's actually organic, and then there's inorganic and whatever comes afterwards.
I like that.
In terms of organic or inorganic.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the medicinal purposes of it, which would you say would be, because many a times you'd hear it's best to just do things organically rather than inorganically.
Right.
What would be your
This is also one of the drawbacks to the having a black market for cannabis right now.
I was going to say, can we just clarify that cultivating marijuana is illegal?
Exactly.
So using is safe to talk about.
Right.
Cultivating marijuana is illegal in this
illegal.
country.
I caught it.
Thank you.
So this is one of the problems with there being a black market still, because you can't purchase it in a open way. You don't know what you're getting. You can't provide it. So in terms of what the position that we find ourselves in, if you want to engage with cannabis, is kind of a
You have no choice. You have to trust what's being sold to you. Yeah.
sold. I don't know anything about buying it.
Okay. Trust your source.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
right.
because
So-
you still aren't allowed.
Wow.
And we're joking about it, but this is
It's
really where our
serious
laws.
because
just,
Yes.
our
you know.
Attorney General himself, I'm a passionate I'm passionate in getting as much information about this as possible, and so every interview, I'm trying to find the information about it here, specifically in Belize. And even our Attorney General has said that we're in this wet foot, dry foot is how he refers to it.
You're right, but wrong.
Yes,
Because you can have
right.
it, but
you can have
you
it, but
shouldn't
you
have bought
shouldn't.
it. You shouldn't have grown it.
Yeah.
So even
Good
our
point.
legal system is currently in flux in terms of how do we manage this particular substance that has so many potential benefits economically, medically, psychotherapy, all of these things, but at the same time is still considered illicit.
But we're not unique. I do have to say that, because I think one of the most eye-opening experiences I had was in Amsterdam. It is also very similar to our laws, where it's 10 grams or less and for private consumption, but they have special permits for their coffee shops, where you can be able to sell and use, but they don't enforce, whether or not you're smoking out in public or selling.
These were my experiences as well, and coffee shop culture specifically is a community where, like I said, people really take the initiative, the individual takes the initiative to find ways to bring community together around the issue. Group sessions of gifting of cannabis is one of the ways that you just get around these legal, until the law catches up with society, because society is moving forward.
Yeah, it is.
So BJ, are you back home or you're just on break from school?
As I said, I'm currently attempting to finish this master's degree in neuroscience.
You will.
I'm sure I will,
Yeah.
yes, but it takes time, so I'm
Yeah.
home until I finish,
Yeah.
my writing.
So what do you see
research.
yourself doing in the meantime? There are quite a number of activists, and there still are a number of people who are against going any
Right.
further than we are now.
Right.
Where do you see yourself in the Belize conundrum that we're in?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. I'm excited to be home, like I said, because of the experiences I've had other places. I'm excited to be potentially involved.
Yeah.
I'm eager to be involved in cannabis activism in Belize specifically because I expect that someday this is where my industry will be founded, and I already have clients that I have on board with furthering this foray into cannabis psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So this is where I want to be.
Are you going to be doing your thesis on this? And
I wanted
maybe-
to, honestly, I've been trying to. However, the obstacles to getting research done in cannabis I might not overcome
right.
those in time to finish the degree,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that I will be working in
Yeah.
for the future, for sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming
Nice.
in and
Thank
sharing
you.
your
Thank you
experience.
guys for giving this opportunity
Very
and to have
wonderful
the
conversation.
conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly.
There-
All right.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the Amadea Basketball League. So stay tuned.